Hey Rick, how you doing, man?
Good morning, Keith. I'm fine. How about yourself?
I'm doing great, man. You asked me that earlier, and I said I'm right as rain, and I am.
Right,
I
that's
am
great.
right as
Love
rain.
that
I
phrase.
know. I heard that from the Matrix in the first one when Neo was talking to the Oracle. He said, "I'm right as rain." Man,
It's
so I
that,
know
that series is amazing. I haven't seen the most recent one. It's gotten sort of mixed reviews, but the original was blow
oh,
your doors off.
it was. I really, I think had mixed people had mixed feedback on two and three, but I really enjoyed one, and I thought this one was good too. So yeah, man. So you want to jump into it?
Yes, sir. Let's do it. First, I got to take a shower. Can you all stand by?
Well, you take a shower. I'll hold it down from here.
I got to hose off, man, or I'm no good.
I know,
All
right?
right. Let's try it anyway.
Okay, good. This one is called. The title is "You Don't Have a Life, You Have a Struggle," or you could ask the question, "Do I have a life, or do I have a struggle?"
Susie
And
boy.
yeah, I know what inspired this podcast was me just kind of reflecting back on my life, right? And pre-practice as Keith 1.0 and, practice, being committed to the practice, Keith 2.0. And I can't say post because any day I could get pulled back into ego and then I'm back at 1.0. So I need to be really committed to this path and this journey of operating through life centered in inner peace and being loving and compassionate as I try to serve others. And so the practice really helps with that. But what I was thinking about, Rick, was that in my lifetime, I had this, and you mentioned this before, that at the root of the suffering are unmet expectations. And these are expectations that somehow along the way we were conditioned to think were entitlements. And that's not how life works. Life is, as you mentioned, what Mark Twain said, is one damn thing after another. And so once you accept that, you're like, I'm okay with the change. All right. Yes. I mean, there's no guarantee it's not supposed to rain today. It's raining, accept the rain. Not, it's a wedding and it shouldn't be raining on my wedding day. But it is raining on your wedding day. And so you can make that a struggle. Well, my whole life, no matter what happened, because it's one thing after another, I would find myself fighting what was reality, what was the situation of the moment, that my fighting and resisting it didn't do anything to change it. Instead, it caused me internal suffering. And that's the fight within. And so in that case, my life has been this constant struggle with these brief periods of peace or distraction. And that distraction could be me being conscious and focused on a life purpose that was really like, that elevated me, that brought me joy, that gave me this sense of doing something good for others. Or it could be me, fulfilling a desire or doing something pleasurable, whether it's a vacation or whether it's in a relationship or something like that. I had those brief moments of distractions, but what was really going on was everything that didn't happen the way that I thought it should occur, I was struggling with. And so when I look over my life, almost everything that happened that I didn't like, I had something negative to say. I had a complaint, I had a grievance. And in that, I created life to be a struggle. And now what's different is I'm living a life. I'm not living a struggle. I'm living a life. And with that, when the challenges occur, I do address them. And part of the addressing is, well, at the heart of all of me giving attention to the challenge is acceptance. And then if I create space within myself, I'm able to respond with intelligent action rather than react to it. And it's often in that reaction to it or resistance or fight against it that the struggle occurs. And so I've really learned that I can be peaceful as I deal with situations or whatever. Get a flat tire, something very simple. I can be peaceful. Oh, I got a flat tire. Let me stop. Let me call AAA or roadside assistance or change the flat myself. Or I can go on and on about the tire manufacturer or these crummy roads that we drive on, you know, or all manner of things. How I'm going to be late, and I can't believe this happened on my way to work, and I'm in a suit, and I'm going to be all of that stuff. That's making life a struggle. None of that contributes to the tire being replaced or repaired. So just really becoming really mindful that it's a choice, man. And being mindful that it's a choice and that I don't have to comment on everything or have an opinion about everything, that life, I have a life. I literally, Rick, over the last 7 years, I've had a life as opposed to these brief respites from my struggle. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, boy, I've seen that experience that you've gone through, and I've seen how struggle has overcome your life at times. And I wouldn't say you've ever been out of control when I saw you, but I think that you were in a downward spiral that had a lot to do with the self-talk that came about by virtue of how you wanted things to be versus how they were showing up for you. And I think Keith 1.0 didn't have that kind of mechanism to understand what was causing the stress and what was causing the suffering, which was correctly, as you point out, suffering. I did a retreat a couple of years ago, and one of the people at the retreat, one of the seminar leaders, had a very interesting way of dealing with crisis. And we never had any crisis that was in the classroom or manufactured, but there would be little tiffs that would happen. People would be arguing, or there would be things that would come up that he would comment on and try to give some people guidance on how to deal with them. And almost every time someone raised an issue, like I've just found out my son is dabbling in marijuana, and he's only 12 years old. There are other people in the class who would fly off the handle and say, well, you've got to stop this right now, and you take away all his devices and crack down on him. And other people would say, no, he's experimenting, you got to do that. And so there's like a controversy about how we handle problems. And that's true with all of us. But his approach was interesting. His first thing was he would listen to it all, and then people would stop talking, and he'd just look at each of them and say, like, how come you're not outraged, was sort of the reaction. But what he was doing was he was, in a sense, remembering that he had a choice about how he could proceed. He didn't have to jump on either bandwagon or any bandwagon or even decide that he was going to be outraged. He looked at it more like, well, this is an interesting problem. Let me see what my options are, and sort of went through in his head what those were. Now, that's a very sterile kind of classroom, almost artificial example of what life throws at us. But the concept of I think is really important, because by stepping back and taking a breath and saying to yourself, that acknowledges that there is something that you have an option to do. And once you remember that you have a choice, I'm not going to suffer here. I'm going into problem solve mode. And then I'm going to let it go. I'm going to detach and let it go. That's part of the transformation that comes, I think, with the practice, don't you?
I do, Rick. And, a lot of people, at least Keith 1.0 would be saying, well, I was problem solving before, but just like anything else, okay, but what was the spirit of your problem solving? What was the energy in your problem solving? A lot of people I was just parenting. Oh, by like verbally, dressing down the child and, negative feedback. I mean, I guess that's one way to parent. And so the same thing with problem solving, people, go about that in a certain way. But is it a way that you can go about problem solving without creating any suffering or any additional suffering? And yeah, I mean, with the practice 2.0, I've learned to, and I'm still learning to deal with situations and problem solve in a way that is still peaceful. And I never, for certain things, I thought being a peaceful approach was good over here. But when it really gets serious, you got to come with your armor, your battle, and everything else. And I look at like how Keith 1.0 would have dealt with the pandemic and politics today, and I would have been outraged at so many fronts, man. It would have been like it would have been absolutely crazy. And instead, I haven't struggled one bit through the pandemic. And during the course of this, I've been, without, other, I had, a modest income and revenue coming in from our little wellness studio, but with an employer that I was with, I was let go, and I didn't struggle there either, at all. And our little wellness business is, at that point, the way that we conducted business was through in person. We had no technology in here to do things virtually. Didn't know, we had no idea how to do it. And even when confronted with that, I didn't say, I can't believe they're closing down like fitness centers and studio. I had none of that. I just, it's like, oh, okay, what else can we do? Oh, let's pivot and let's go to virtual. Okay, great. How do you do virtual? I don't know. But because I was in a peaceful place, and I went, I was able to be open to what the choices might be. Now, did I have the money for it? No, because my mom was like, my Keith 1.0 was like, what this is going to cost? It's going to cost a fortune. Well, actually, it didn't cost a fortune. And a lot of things I learned how to do were on YouTube, which was free. So, but none of that would have been available to me if I would have come at it that I'm in a struggle. But instead, I made a commitment that I was going to try to remain conscious that I want to create a life. And in creating a life, I can still address issues and problems and challenges. I'm just going to address it in a way that doesn't create more suffering, that doesn't make the problem even, more challenging than what it already might be. And that's really been a game changer for me, Rick. It's just, so, I guess the question to you is, was there a period in your life, or was there a period in your existence that you were living a struggle? And if so, when did you flip it to begin creating a life?
Oh, Keith, seriously, I'm still struggling. It's a practice. It's a practice. The deal for all of us, I think, is that we have a narrative about the way life should be. And I had a very strong narrative, still do. I want it to be a certain way, damn it. And when it's not, then I'm outraged. And if it's a tire blowing in the middle of the freeway, I'm outraged at the tire maker and the roads and the traffic and everyone else. But I think over time, what's happened is I spend less time in outrage, and I spend less time being an actor and a complainer, and an acting out person and a complainer, and more about, okay, Rick, this is the narrative. You just caught yourself. Get out of that. You're not going to go anywhere except down a rabbit hole. And that narrative will create more obstacles than the damn tire. The tire's going to be fixed in an hour. All right. So just deal with that. I read an amazing book. Here I am with the books again. Sorry.
I love them. Keep them coming.
Okay. Here's a book that folks might like. They might be listening to us right now and think, well, this is all well and good when you're dealing with minor crap like blown tires. But what do you do when you've got some serious crisis? So there's a book that I read, if I can remember the name of it. I think it's called, it's got crisis in the name. I think it's called The Transformative Power of Crisis. Transformative Power of Crisis. That was a very instructive book for me. That was very powerful. And it's probably 200 or 300 pages. I can't remember when it was written, but I know it was written by a husband-wife team who were psychoanalysts. She was the director of medical services at Harvard Med School. And he, the co-author, was from Cornell, and he was an analyst, a psychotherapist. So they pulled together different ideas from all sorts of cultures, including the West, Montaigne, who we talked about before, an essayist about trying to realize what your obstacles are in life and how to overcome them, along with a lot of Eastern philosophy as well. And they used the idea of crisis, something that was so challenging, that was very difficult for you to solve on your own, and spun out strategies of how you can deal with this. And it basically boiled down to just what you're talking about. Get your head out of your butt, start thinking about how bad things are. Don't judge it. Be mindful of all your options, take action when you can, and detach. But the idea that I got out of this that still animates how I approach life is meditation and realizing that you're something other than your problems or other than your struggle is a superpower.
Oh,
Now
indeed.
get that. Get that. That is a superpower. You may look at people who don't react and who are peaceful as being nowhere people or people that don't have a clue. And maybe some of them are. But for the person who's mastered self and who understands the narrative that interferes with a good life and having the life instead of a struggle, that is a superpower. And that's what we're trying to cultivate with the practice, a superpower. And to the extent that you gather it, you become Keith 2.0. If you leave it by, you're always going to be stuck in a struggle where life looks like it's nothing but black ops heading your way every goddamn day.
Right. No, Rick, that's great, man. One of my good friends, and we mentioned him yesterday, John DeCuna, he sent me, like, he's just really great, man. Like you, he sends me things to read that are, that supports and nurtures my practice and just really helps me grow. And nice. So I'm always grateful when you send me something to read or a poem or a book title. And he sent me, there's this book, this movie. It's more like a documentary, and it's called Salt in My Soul. And it's on it's on Apple TV, because I researched. I'm gonna watch it this weekend, but I just watched the trailer. And it's about the life of this young person named Mallory Smith. And it's a vivid portrait of who she was and what she believed. And so she had cystic fibrosis, I believe. And every day could have been a challenge, for her. And what she did was there's video footage of her in the trailer if you watch it, and she's taking notes in a journal. She started writing a journal when she was young, and it's all password protected and things like this. And she would never let anyone read it. And people wanted to read it. Like, what are you writing? What are you writing? She would never let anyone read it. And so once she was near the end, toward her physical life, she told her mom, she gave her mom the password to her journal. And man, when the mom starts, you hear her voice kind of narrating it, and it just chokes you up, man. And it's just her saying what people living don't know and what they need to know. The people that aren't living. I mean, and it's just, and like,
that's great.
Oh my God, man. Like, Rick, if you knew that during this pandemic that we've been living in or through the last 2 years, right? If you knew that those were the last 2 years of your life and they were going to be pandemic, how much differently would you have lived them? Mm-hmm. I mean, and not you, but I'm just talking to, myself and the audience. Would I have been like twisted in knots over people masking or not masking? Not for a second. People vaccinated, not vaccinated, not for a second. None of that, man. I'd have been rooted out of nature. Every sunset, every breath, every step would have meant something to me. How can I contribute? How can I serve? How can I help? That's it, man. How can I not medicate myself in such a way, whether it's food or whether it's television and social media or whether it's, the news or whatever it is that takes me below consciousness. Let me get to bed right now to get these 8 hours of sleep, because I don't want to sleepwalk through anything the next day. So I'm rested and I can be fully present there. That's how I live my life right now. Yeah. Every single day. I live it just like this. I mean, I'm going to watch the film, and I don't know how it's going to hit me, but it's possible because of this practice of living every day like that I'm going to walk back. I'm going to leave with gratitude, and not gratitude that the kind of gratitude is like, I'm so grateful that my suffering that I experienced 7 years ago put me on this path, that revealed this choice to me, and that I was at a fork in the road, that I continue living a struggle or I could start living a life. And at that moment, I chose unapologetically and in a non-negotiable way that I was going to live a life. I'm thinking that when I look at the film, be like, her wisdom, what she's telling us, I'm living that way every single day.
You are a walking example of that, Keith, and self-mastery that you've shown all of us. That self-mastery, that is a superpower.
Oh, thanks, Rick. I know at any moment it can run out, so I got to keep doing the practice, so I keep it, at full capacity. And there's so many ways to do it, man. But I guess we could end there, Rick. But I just want to pose to the audience with the way that you live in your life. Are you living a life, or are you living a struggle? Like seriously, like
it's your choice.
Yeah,
total choice.
100%. There are no external enemies. There are none. It's all concepts made about the mind. There's not to say that there's not poor behavior, bad behavior, hurtful behavior. That exists. How you react and relate to it is completely your choice. And for me, I'm committed to keeping an open heart, not confusing behavior with who people are. I mean, if there is some kind of consequence, the universe, the other structures that are there, that's their job. My job is to keep an open heart. That's my path. So, Rick, thank you so much, man. I love you.
I love you. Adios, Keith. Great job.
Adios. Thank you.